Entropy is the quiet force that waits behind every moment, the soft pressure that turns structures into dust and memories into faint impressions, and it is always present in the background like a universal tide, steady and patient. In the early days of the universe, this tide roared with raw simplicity, energy spread outward with a single tendency to occupy every corner available, and every star and planet and cell and thought has been a brief act of resistance against that movement. A single day in a human life is shaped by that same pressure, not in some metaphorical sense, but in the literal physics of heat dispersing through a room and oxygen diffusing across the surface of a lung. And yet meaning emerges inside this physical decay, as if consciousness is a small flame insisting that order can be carved out of the general slide toward randomness. Every morning begins with a subtle balancing act. There is the body, warm from rest and already losing heat to the surrounding air. There is the mind, carrying impressions from dreams that crumble the moment they meet waking light. There is the environment, full of objects in various states of wear, each one aging by the minute. The universe does not wait for readiness. The decay simply continues. And yet a mind can rise inside that decay and begin shaping the day into something deliberate. When matter is left alone, it tends toward the simplest and most disordered configuration. But consciousness has never been content with the simplest path. It repositions a cup on a table. It straightens a stack of papers. It solves a small problem at work. It remembers something worth protecting. And each of these motions is a defiance of the one law that everything else obeys without question. What makes entropy so strange is how it can feel both oppressive and comforting. Oppressive because everything built with care eventually unravels. Comforting because this unraveling creates the very gradients that life depends on. Stars shine because of it. Winds blow because of it. Neurons fire because of it. Even thought itself is shaped by differences in charge that seek equilibrium, but never quite reach it. A day that matters is not one that escapes entropy, because that is impossible, but one that discovers the right places to place pockets of order, small sanctuaries where attention can settle and focus can gather. In a sense, meaning is a pattern that emerges from the creative use of imbalance, a pattern that can survive long enough to influence the next moment and the next. Consider the room not as a set of objects, but as a temporary arrangement of atoms that are always shifting in probability. Dust accumulates because microscopic fragments follow statistical rules that favor dispersion. Paint fades because photons break chemical bonds, and even the materials that feel solid are full of thermal motion. Still, minds enter these rooms and create islands of intention. A chair is moved slightly to one side, a book is placed with its spine aligned in a way that signals readiness. A window blind is adjusted to let in a measured light. These are not trivial motions. They are acts in which a conscious system asserts its own logic against the wider trend of disorder. They do not last forever. Nothing does, but they last long enough to shape experience. This interplay grows more interesting at larger scales, civilizations or concentrations of order in a universe that prefers uniformity. Libraries, bridges, electrical grids, and languages are improbable structures held together by maintenance and attention. They decay the moment that care drifts away. Humanity continues building because the mind is drawn to patterns that extend beyond the individual. Meaning often arises in the attempt to construct something that can outlast the day, even if it only lasts slightly longer. Entropy teaches that permanence is an illusion, but it also reveals that impermanence can be the stage on which creativity performs at its brightest. When nothing is guaranteed stable, every act of creation becomes a spark thrown into the dark, a spark that illuminates more than the moment it was born in. The physics behind these ideas is ancient and simple. In any closed system, energy spreads until no gradient remains and no direction exists for work to occur. But living beings are not closed systems. They import energy from the environment, convert it, and use it to shape structure. A plant takes in sunlight and transforms it into sugars and tissue. An animal consumes sustenance and uses chemical energy to move and think. A mind takes in information and converts it into decisions, expectations, and stories. Each of these processes interrupts the drift of entropy for a time, creating zones of improbable order in a universe that leans in the opposite direction. This contradiction makes consciousness feel almost miraculous, despite arising from natural laws that have unfolded since the first second of the cosmic beginning. Meaning grows from the steady practice of forming coherence inside the flow of time. A meaningful day is a sequence of small alignments where internal chaos settles into coherence. These alignments form when attention wraps around a question or image or possibility, and the internal turbulence quiets enough for direction to appear. Without them, life becomes a blur of noise pulled along by entropy. With them, life becomes a sequence of shaped experiences that reinforce a sense of direction. Meaning is not abstract purpose, but the practice of creating coherent patterns inside the present. These patterns condition the next choices and slowly alter the trajectory of a life. The universe does not resist this process. It allows and even encourages structures that temporarily slow the spread of randomness. The spiral of a galaxy and the lattice of a snowflake share the same mathematical inclination to form. Because certain configurations minimize instabilities, consciousness is an extension of that tendency, a pattern aware of patterns, a self-organizing process that observes the larger structure and contemplates its own role within it. The more a mind observes, the more it recognizes the fragility of order and the value of shaping it with intention. A day feels meaningful not because it defeats entropy, but because it uses the slope of entropy as a canvas, drawing transient forms that reveal mind at work. There is a kind of quiet peace in recognizing that every thought takes place against the backdrop of cosmic decay. Peaceful because it releases impossible demands. Nothing must last forever to be worthwhile. Nothing must withstand centuries in order to matter. A moment of clarity can be significant simply because it brings structure to the present, because it aligns inner experience with external conditions in a way that feels coherent. The physics of entropy explains why chaos is easy. The psychology of meaning explains why order is worth the effort when attention guides action. The mind becomes an instrument that shapes fleeting energy into patterns that support life and understanding. Attention itself behaves like a thermodynamic control in miniature. Focus concentrates potential and reduces local randomness. It is not a mystical force, but an energy investment. When cognitive resources are allocated toward a process, the rate of useful structure generation increases and the mind produces stable outputs such as solutions, memories, and narratives. This perspective transforms the common notion of productivity because the goal is not quantity of tasks completed, but the quality of pockets of order created. A single elongated moment of attentive thought might yield more durable structure than many distracted movements. The geometry of attention matters as much as the amount invested. Memory is another arena where entropy and order contest each other. Without rehearsal, memories fade and the associative webs that support them degrade. Yet the act of linking new information to existing structures creates redundancy that stabilizes recollection. Memory is therefore an engineering problem. Redundant pathways reduce error and increase the durability of representations. In practical terms, this means the stories that last are those that have been woven into many contexts and layers. The more connections a fact has, the less likely it is to dissolve into indistinct noise, meaning therefore benefits from interconnection. A single article or an isolated insight is fragile by itself, but when integrated into a lattice of thought, it becomes resilient. Creativity follows the same logic. Novel ideas arise from the recombination of existing patterns. Entropy provides raw variation through noise and randomness. The creative mind samples this variation and selects configurations that momentarily resist decay by being useful or beautiful. In that sense, entropy is a necessary partner for invention. It supplies the raw materials that structure then orders into novelty. There is a balance to be found. Too much randomness yields incoherence, and too much rigidity stops innovation. The sweet spot is a local regime where enough unpredictability exists for new combinations to be sampled, and enough selective pressure exists to retain the useful ones. Social systems reveal this dynamic at a collective scale. Communities succeed when they create institutions that lower the cost of cooperation and maintain order, where it amplifies human flourishing. Institutions themselves are temporary artifices that require maintenance, governance, rituals, and incentives to persist. When attention drifts, the accumulated order decays, and structures fail. The history of empires shows that the maintenance of cultural order is an unglamorous but essential activity. The lesson is not that entropy must be defeated, but that attention must be shaped into systems that channel energy into constructive ends. The material of society will always be fragile, yet fragility does not negate value. Technology is an especially interesting frontier because artifacts amplify the ability to create pockets of order. A simple machine converts dispersed energy into directed work. A network concentrates information that would otherwise dissipate. Tools thereby expand the reach of attention. Yet tools also introduce new failure modes and dependencies. They create ontologies that reorder priorities and compress certain processes while scattering others. The ethical dimension emerges here because every design decision encodes an alignment between behavior and outcome. Building systems that favor durable human values requires foresight and the habit of treating maintenance as a primary design objective rather than an afterthought. On the individual level, habits act as maintenance routines for personal order. Small rituals reduce the entropy of decision-making by establishing default pathways that preserve cognitive energy for novel problems. A routine is not a prison if chosen with reflection. It is a hedge against the constant pull of randomness. Selected patterns free attention for deeper concerns by automating predictable parts of life. Order, therefore, need not be rigid. It can provide the scaffolding that allows creative improvisation in the spaces that matter. Yet there is a necessary humility in all of this. The horizon of time continually expands, and any single structure is provisional. The mindful agent accepts that work will require continual repair. The practice becomes one of long-term tending rather than short-lived conquest. Longevity appears less as a goal than as a discipline. And the discipline is the recurring investment of attention into the places where small order compounds into lasting influence. This is the craft of living deliberately. It is not heroic in spectacle, but it is heroic in steadiness. Aesthetic experience plays a significant role as well. Beauty is a compressed representation of order that resonates with the pattern recognition machinery of the mind. Moments of delight often occur when an arrangement of elements reduces complexity into an elegant coherence. Art and design thus become tools for perceptual economy. They teach the observer how to recognize and prefer configurations that hold together. The appreciation of beauty, therefore, trains attention to value certain kinds of order. And in that training, the mind becomes better at creating and preserving meaningful structures in daily life. Memory of lineage and story also contributes to order at longer scales. Narratives transmit methods of maintenance across generations. Rituals encode repair procedures that are distributed socially and temporally. A community that remembers its practices has a built-in redundancy that resists rapid collapse. Oral histories and slow customs might appear inefficient compared to instant information. Yet their slowness can be the very factor that preserves coherence across shocks. The scaffolding of civilization is often less glamorous than invention, but maintenance and memory generate the conditions in which invention can recur. The psychology of resignation deserves attention too. When systems are thought of as inevitably doomed, people may withdraw their efforts. A kind of self-fulfilling cancellation ensues. The opposite pathology is also present when denial of fragility leads to reckless expansion without maintenance. The wiser stance is a tension between acceptance of limits and commitment to careful tending. This stance generates realistic optimism, not the shallow variety, but a form of hope calibrated by attentiveness, and competence, meaning grows in this tension where possibility meets constraint. On a practical mental plane, the mind benefits from conceptual maps that highlight where attention is best invested. Models that indicate high leverage zones reduce wasted effort. These are not hard algorithms, but heuristics such as recognizing recurring leaks of attention, or identifying the few relationships that produce the most mutual sustenance. Such heuristics behave like local laws of thermodynamics adapted for daily life. They suggest where to spend cognitive energy so that order yields the largest return relative to the cost imposed by entropy. The social consequences of these small decisions accumulate into cultural direction. Norms that value repair and curiosity create spaces where incremental improvement becomes the dominant trajectory. Contrast that with cultures that reward spectacle and novelty alone, and the long-term stability of systems is undermined. A civilization that prizes maintenance creates libraries, and hospitals, and bridges, and rituals, institutions that allow complex projects to persist across generational time. These choices orient the future toward sustained flourishing. Towards the close of day, the physical signs of entropy become clearer. Warmth recedes and light decreases. Objects rest where they were left, and microscopic shifts hint at future disorder, yet this fading contains the seeds of reflection. It is an invitation to gather the events of the day and register them as part of a gradual pattern. Meaning accrues not by denying the decay, but by recognizing it, noting where attention has succeeded and where neglect invited drift. This ledger of moments becomes the basis for future repair and designs. At the deepest level, the study of entropy and order reveals a kind of ethics for minded systems. The moral take is not a set of commandments, but an engineering ethic. Preserve that which supports life and learning. Build systems that lower maintenance costs. Design incentives that reward repair over spectacle. Cultivate communities that value patient craftsmanship, and at the individual scale form habits that reduce personal friction and increase the capacity for sustained attention. This ethic is practical rather than dogmatic. It is grounded in the reality that everything requires tending, and that small, regular input compounds into large-scale durability. Finally, there is a certain grandeur in recognizing that in a universe inclined toward evenness, the few pockets of order that arise are precious, not because they will last unchanged, but because for a time they allow complexity to flourish. For a time they host conversations, discoveries, and lives. Meaning is therefore not a denial of impermanence. It is a strategy for making the most of finitude, And in the quiet work of shaping days into fields of coherent attention, a life becomes a cumulative argument for care. The universe gives no guarantees, yet within the slope of entropy, a mind can still compose a sequence of moments that together read like a deliberate creation. And that composition is the human art of living in a turbulent cosmos.